The homepage for RequestRocket nailed the technical accuracy as one would expect from a technical founder, but it wasn't making developers stop, click, and sign up right off the bat. Its founder built something rare in DevTools, a universal API translator that gets you connected in under a minute. In this Creator Jam, we looked at how to turn that speed advantage into a headline wedge, clean up tiny CTA mismatches that cost signups, and move social proof where it actually converts. Let's get into it.
Hi, my name's Alex. I'm the founder of RequestRocket, and RequestRocket is a universal API authentication translation service hosted on the cloud and globally distributed, and it lets developers connect to systems using the authentication that they want, not just the ones that the target systems they're connecting to might offer.
I love it. I always love to dive deep into technical tools for developers in these Creator Jams because there's so many nuances there that I think everyone can learn from. Question for you before you kind of get started. Tell me how you kind of got the idea for RequestRocket and how long you've been building it and working on it.
So the idea for RequestRocket came about, I guess, through 5 or more years of building integrations to different systems for customers. And one of the things that I guess was universal across that experience was that every single time we want to start building an integration, the first thing we ask is, do they have an API? And if so, how do they authenticate before we even get into it? And so what we found was that there was a lot of friction in terms of being able to build integrations depending on the type of authentication that a system had. And it left us wanting, an alternative to that would let us authenticate with a system. And when I say authenticate, I don't mean in the traditional sense of like username, password, you signing into something. I mean systems talking to systems and AI talking to AI. That we would want to be able to ultimately translate an authentication that a target system provides into something that's more friendly for us to use from a developer point of view. Not only that, but a lot of the integrations that we built, but after you go live, can actually sometimes be fragile, and that fragility really does relate to the systems that you're talking to. And how their APIs are performing. And quite often those things are outside of your control. And so what RequestRocket was built to do is not only help you translate that authentication from maybe it's OAuth2 into an API key or something like that, but also give you a high degree of observability in how those APIs that you're talking to are performing. And also to manage then the security in terms of access to a system where you might only have a single key, and you need to be able to give access to that key or to that system to different developers. And so there were a number of different problems that we were trying to solve while building these integrations. And it really led to the creation of RequestRocket. In terms of development, we started about a year ago now. I quit my job. I started working on the platform with a colleague of mine. It's very much, I guess, an Australian version of a startup story. We came up with the idea in a shed in someone's backyard. Started the development, and then it's been about a year now, and we're at a point where we're more than MVP. We have developers actively in the platform and using it.
Yeah. Congrats. I love kind of that whole backstory of kind of solving your own pain point that you are personally experienced and turning that into an actual bootstrap company. So kudos there. For people who are listening to this, who is kind of your ideal customer? Is it a bottom up process where you're trying to appeal to developers first? They start using it and sell into the CTO or someone like that? Or is it literally top down where you have to convince the CTO or someone in DevOps? What's kind of the sales cycle look like?
Yeah, good point. Good question, actually. So we initially, obviously, we built this platform for ourselves, and we are developers. And so from the outset, we've been really focused on building a tool that developers will love to use. And so it really is initially established as something that from a bottom-up approach, developers can easily get into the platform like you would do with Jira or Postman. You can get in and start using it freely, and then create an organization and then invite people into that organization to share and build your APIs yourselves as a team. So with that, despite the fact that we built it for the developer, we've also been conscious of the fact that you need that organizational level access control over APIs. This is at its core, we are solving a problem not just around connectivity, but also security and observability. And so in terms of our customer, while it is the developer who gets in and uses the platform, and it is the DevOps team who are able to get in there and deploy secrets and things like that into our secure vaults. Ultimately the platform is useful not just for them but also their organizations. And so we see CTOs who are interested in the platform to essentially centralize the management of their APIs and giving it as a tool to their team. And we've also seen developers get on there and just start building things on their own as well. So yeah, kind of a top-down and bottom-up approach, if that makes sense.
And I know this isn't the only type of tool available, although I know your methodology and approach to building it is very different. What is kind of the core value perhaps that a developer or kind of an entire organization sees from using RequestRocket?
Yeah, ultimately, look, we're solving a problem that is common across all integrations. And that problem really is around authentication and observability. And we're doing that in a way that I think is unique in the market as compared to other platforms which have focused around supporting developers to build like an integration platform as a service or an iPaaS. So you might have platforms like MuleSoft and Boomi out there, which are these large, quite opinionated platforms that tell you how to build integrations and then try to solve this problem, but inevitably do a bad job at solving this specific problem. So for us, we took a different approach. We looked at it in terms of what is the most common thing that most common problem that people are trying to solve. And what we found with our platform is that we can actually avoid using these large, costly integration platforms as a service if we could just solve the authentication problem. And so as a solution, when in terms of competing with others in the market, we're also not just competing with them around this, but we're also an add-on that can facilitate them even when they are using tools like that. And so from our perspective, I think we're quite unique. There are other API management platforms on the market, all of which have become quite large and quite difficult to use. And we are quite narrow focused on specifically solving the authentication problem and doing that at scale and doing that in a high availability and high scalability way so that people can just get in and use it immediately.
Yeah, so kind of to sum it up, it's basically you are a really unique way and a really elegant way of solving the authentication problem, and it's also faster and more secure.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, from a developer experience, it takes in terms of our setup, it takes less than 60 seconds to set up a proxy and have that operating and pulling data from a system anywhere in the world. And that in itself is quite different to what's on the market today.
That's incredible. So I think that's probably a perfect segue if we want to pull up your homepage.
Yeah, sure. Let me just bring that up.
Okay, so walk me through kind of your thought process when it came to the hero section and your H1 being the universal API authentication translator.
Yeah, so I guess initially when we're looking at this website, this hero section was completely different to what it is today, about 6 months ago. Really, from an SEO point of view, what we're looking at in terms of our keywords were around having that API authentication as a key search term. So our H1 on our landing page really does narrow in on the specific use case that we're looking at in the market. In terms of what the platform does and how to, a quick, easy way to get started. So we have the try request rocket button as a key call to action in the hero section. We have a bit of an overview of what the platform actually is, and then we have that kind of opt-in messaging, which really says to someone, this is what it's all about in a sentence. Now drill in and read more if that kind of aligns with what you were actually looking for when you hit us on Google or from LinkedIn or however you got here.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. One, so it sounds like you're really trying to go for the SEO play of universal API authentication. Totally understand that. It's super valid. My thought process to you is there's nothing wrong with the H1 in terms of like what it actually says what you do, but it doesn't really fully differentiate why you're different or why a developer should choose you instead of any other solution out there. So like one thing that I'm going back to what you said before is, hey, you can get authenticated within 60 seconds. Why not put in universal API authentication in 60 seconds or something like that to kind of immediately get developers, on your radar and being like, okay, this says I can immediately get this right now. You still have the SEO impact, but now you're differentiated.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And I've done a bit of survey. I said this is not the first time we've changed the site. I think from my perspective, looking at how other platforms communicate what they do, I'm also not completely happy with the H1 if I'm being honest. And I take your point. Absolutely. Yeah, it can be better.
Yeah, and then a couple other things that I'm noticing, and this is something I've seen now across probably 30 websites, including some that I'm literally hired by clients to actually write, is your CTA and your hero section and the CTA and your navigation menu are different. And that seems really small on the surface, but it actually just creates like a tiny bit of friction that actually can make a big difference in conversions. So if you're going to lean in to try RequestRocket as your kind of sales, as your kind of freemium product-led approach, have that be the same button in your navigation menu as well instead of let's go. Also, let's go is just incredibly vague. That works fine sometimes if you're a consultant. If you're a software platform, I would just go with something a little more simple, like create a free account, try RequestRocket for free, or book a demo if you're sales led, which you're not. But yeah.
No, we're definitely not sales led, so that's great.
And then another really, really small thing is the white text on the green background, particularly in the sub description, is a little hard to read. I'm sure that's probably a pretty easy fix, but I would maybe consider changing either, the background or making the colors for the description a little bit easier.
Yeah, in fact, if I go to another page, and most of our other pages actually have a very similar style, the menu is a lot easier to read. So I definitely take your point around that as well.
Yeah, super, super small thing that could make a very large difference when it comes to getting a lot more signups. Scroll down. So you now have, okay, we're here to simplify how systems and API talk to different APIs. Makes sense. You're kind of explaining the problem. I like it. That kind of goes across pretty much every single go to home page. You explain the problem you're solving in a way that's eloquent. One thing that I am noticing is that's different from a lot of sites is I'm noticing there's no social proof anywhere in the hero section or right below it. And there's a reason a lot of SaaS platforms in particular have that row of logos or a bunch of customer testimonial or a case study, is because it kind of instantly signifies, hey, there's a lot of people using this, or people are using this and they're getting a lot of value. Do you have any logos that you can kind of show in there?
We are progressively collecting the examples that we can put in here in terms of case studies, and we do further down the page actually have partner. It's actually much further down. Yeah. In terms of partnerships and the like, but it is quite far down. And I take your point, maybe having that a bit of sooner in terms of the page might actually help. Yeah.
I mean, if you just want to scroll down to where it says statistics.
Statistics. Did I get past that?
Yeah, so those are like I'm assuming these are like integrations and requests and all the things. Even this and your partners, you could probably change the design of it a little bit. Even this would serve as a little bit of social proof. Like I would still probably encourage you if you can get, if you can get anywhere between 5 and 10 logos and just put them as like a little row at the bottom of your hero section. There's a reason 95% of SaaS websites have that. It's because it works. It's going to instantly just signal, hey, people are using this, people like it, and it's just going to help you get a lot more signups.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you just want to scroll back up to the problem section.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like it, makes a lot of sense. Scroll down. So now you're kind of getting into what I'm assuming is the solution, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Yeah. So you were really doing exactly what everyone should be doing. You have a
I would
messaging wedge.
say, yeah, solution and benefits
Yeah.
combined. I think, yeah.
Yeah, you have the exact sort of thing that I always tell pretty much every single person on every single Creator Jam I've done, which is you want to have your wedge. In this case, you can set up a proxy in 60 seconds. Lead with that in your hero section. You explain your problem, then you explain the actual solution. In the next bit, so where you're kind of going through those key value props. Now, my question to you is, go back to the first one again. Okay, so are each of these like kind of the key value props? So
Correct.
optimize development time and like each block kind of a different value prop, or how did you structure that?
Yeah, they're very much a different value proposition. And so in terms of and in fact, I don't know if we've got these perfectly right yet in terms of what the are they the exhaustive list or are they just a short list? Or are they even the right list for the customer? And so that's something that I'm still conscious of. Also conscious of the graphics that go with it, wanting to still improve on some of that. But in terms of the value propositions, yes, optimized development time, globally distributed, high availability network, advancing your security, and there are a few more that could go on this. But I wasn't sure when we were at this best stage whether we wanted to overload people because three key call outs ended up, the whole point of this, the call to action on this was to click through and then to read more about this and other value propositions in the technology.
Totally. I think you're kind of spot on for a lot of this. I would maybe encourage you to think a little bit more about like, I don't know how often you're kind of talking to customers, but kind of making sure that the language that you're using is the same language developers are using internally to explain it to you. And then basically, here's the secret to really good copywriting, parroting that back to them just in a way that actually is designed to convert. But the whole idea of this going with 3 value props makes a ton of sense. I would say in general, change up the CTA where it says read more into something that is, if you're going to have a CTA there, either make it incredibly obvious that they can create a free account, that they can create an account, or just get rid of it altogether, because that's just kind of filler. And it's the same thing that you see with like learn more or read more, like a very lazy CTA that doesn't really tell you anything at all.
Yeah, so how do you feel about I've read previously that with regards to buttons like this, having a main CTA and then a sort of a non-committal CTA, and the main one would be try RequestRocket and the read more would be I'm not yet committed and I need to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty much spot on. I always, always, always recommend this, and I always do this myself too, which is you want to have your primary CTA, which in your case is, create that account and get started. That should be your primary CTA anywhere that's kind of above the fold, anywhere else. If people are not ready yet, I don't usually like read more or learn more for kind of CTA in like this sort of section where you're going through the nitty gritty of value props. I would probably just lead with all of that directly in the page, even if it is a little bit longer. There's ways you can design around that. And then towards the bottom of the page, if people are not ready to sign up yet, that's usually where getting them, and I know you have a newsletter already, so like pushing your newsletter as a sub CTA, the secondary one, or a lead magnet, or a couple of ebooks or white papers or videos or podcasts, those can be really great things to put near the bottom as kind of that sub CTA for people who are not ready yet.
Sure.
And scroll down. Okay, so use the authentication method of your choice. No problems there. I'd get rid of read more again for those same reasons I said before. Scroll down. Okay, more kind of screenshots. I like that screenshot, makes a lot of sense. Up and running in seconds. Again, you're burying probably the most important wedge in there. Move up and make sure you can still have it here, but just move that up into the hero section as well. And that's really kind of that wedge in your differentiator. That's one of the reasons why people are going to sign up. Scroll down. Okay, again, I kind of mentioned that about statistics earlier. Scroll down. Same with the industry partners, probably bring those up a little bit. You don't have to. And then scroll down. Be the first to receive the latest news. What are people signing up? What is your newsletter about? And is it really to get the latest news, or is there something that you can offer that's a little bit more specific and unique?
So in practice, what this does is it puts them in a mailing list that alerts them with regards to new blog posts and news that ends up on our news page, which unfortunately is not linked here for some reason. But if I were to go back up to my menu in news, it would be essentially this page here.
Got it. So I would challenge you to make that CTA for the newsletter be something a little bit more specific to like why they should sign up for RequestRocket as opposed to any other dev tools newsletter.
Sorry, just can you clarify what you mean by that? Sorry.
I mean, like, be the first to receive the latest news from us is really generic. And if it's going to be your kind of secondary, if it's going to be your secondary CTA for people who aren't ready yet, is there something you can say tied to those blog posts and things like that that's a little bit more specific to you, or just a little bit more into why someone's going to care?
Yeah. So it's not dev news, it's not industry news, it's news about RequestRocket. Yes. Yeah, I got you.
I would lean into that a little bit more, but in a way that makes it, easy for someone to want to sign up.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, great.
Awesome. If you want to stop sharing your screen. Is there anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's good to talk to someone who clearly understands a little bit more about engagement on web pages than myself. I'm glad that I'm glad that it's not a scathing review of the page. So that's a positive. I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying around arranging things and fine-tuning messaging and getting the right words that the industry is actually using and searching for as well. And we are at that point where we think that the website is getting enough traction to warrant making those adjustments to try and improve improve people's experience collectively. Particularly noting like there's a bit of inconsistency between the landing page and the other pages in terms of the background of that hero section, which could be improved as well.
Totally. Thank you so much for coming on to Clarity Jams.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.